Michael Anthony and Eddie Van Halen played rock's most iconic sounds on stage for decades. Fans saw them as brothers, united by music, fame, and Van Halen's tremendous energy. The lights and guitar solos masked a tension that slowly twisted friendship into betrayal. Michael Anthony, 70, has revealed terrible Eddie realities to the world. Their tale wasn't always angry and distant. The two exchanged laughs, hard nights on the road, and world-conquering fantasies in the beginning. Egos, jealousy, and devils burst with celebrity. Eddie's genius was accompanied by perfectionism that made Michael feel invisible, undervalued, and replaced. Anthony kept quiet for years, preferring loyalty over truth. However, Eddie's death made silence too heavy. Michael's latest interview statements surprised everyone. Returning, his voice quivered with emotion. Everything changing moments. Betrayal, anguish, and silence. Even longtime Van Halen fans were astonished by his revelations concerning Eddie's behavior behind the scenes. Not just creative differences. It was about trust, manipulation, and a friendship that collapsed under celebrity. Michael's confession leaves everyone wondering what happened in Van Halen's world and why the truth was concealed for so long. At their late 1970s debut, Van Halen were unlike anything rock had ever seen. Eddie Van Halen's groundbreaking guitar playing, David Lee Roth's flamboyant charm, and Michael Anthony's booming bass lines defined a generation. Michael got to be part of something wonderful, a dream come true. He described the early days as exciting, creative, and brotherly. Cracks were appearing beneath the success. In a chaotic band, Michael was quiet and stable. Michael just wanted to play music while Eddie and David fought for control. He was noted for his impeccable harmonies, steady rhythm, and humility. However, Van Halen noticed something disconcerting as his fame grew. His role was eroding. In the early 1980s, Eddie was preoccupied with control. He intended to influence every Van Halen note, tone, and decision. True to his word, Michael followed. However, he felt erased privately. Eddie reportedly wanted his son Wolfgang to replace him. They were already at odds decades before anything happened. Eddie's perfectionism raged behind the scenes. After days of non-stop sessions, he would lose his anger when things didn't sound right. Michael was often stuck in the middle, trying to keep peace while suppressing his anger. Michael eventually admitted he was a genius, but genius has costs. Even under pressure, Michael stayed loyal. Michael stood by Eddie when Sammy Hagar replaced David Lee Roth. For a time, the band's chemistry and magic returned. Resentment simmered behind the stadium lights and laughter. Eddie started treating Michael like a session player, excluding him from creative decisions. Michael's pay was cut. Interviews downplayed his name. Eddie called him a hired worker, which hurt after decades of loyalty. Michael focused on music and fans rather than fighting back. But those who knew him saw his agony in his eyes whenever the matter came up. Then the final blow. Eddie revealed his son Wolfgang would play bass for Van Halen's 2004 reunion tour. The fans were shocked. Michael was in the band from the start but was suddenly forgotten. It was more than a professional loss for Michael. Being betrayed felt personal. Still, he kept quiet. He refused to criticize Eddie for years, even while supporters sought answers. He played the songs that made him famous while working on The Circle with Sammy Hagar. But the scars were profound. Michael later admitted he tried to contact out, but sometimes things are broken. As Eddie's health declined, Michael silently hoped for reconciliation. That moment never came. Eddie died in 2020, and they never reconciled. Michael kept his heartbreak concealed until now. After 70 years, Michael Anthony has revealed what happened. The emotional anguish, misunderstandings, and unspoken facts of his broken relationship with Eddie. His discovery comes from the urge to finally communicate the truth, not bitterness. A complicated truth about friendship, fame, and quiet. Even Van Halen fans are stunned by what he says about Eddie's final years. Fans were unprepared for Michael Anthony's revelations. For years, the audience only saw Van Halen's glamorous side, wild tours, successful albums, and famous performances that defined American rock. Michael stated that success hid a painful friendship truth. Control, and a band that lost its spirit before anyone noticed. Michael began his narrative honestly, not angry. Although years of miscommunication and mistrust had poisoned their relationship, he still loved Eddie like a brother. Michael quietly stated in a recent interview that it wasn't about money or fame. It was respect. I just wanted to matter. Michael says the late 1990s were the tipping moment. By then, Eddie's life was falling apart. Addiction, loss, and the pressure to be a musical genius had harmed him. Michael said Eddie was plagued and could no longer distinguish man from myth. Michael said he was surrounded by people who wouldn't refuse. The real Eddie then vanished. Michael recalls Eddie spending nights in the studio alone, obsessed with re-recording the same passage, thinking perfection was just a few notes away. Michael claimed he lost trust in everyone, even me. Michael pondered leaving the sessions because the stress was so high. But he didn't. He stayed because he loved their music. We were family, he said. You don't abandon relatives. They kept growing apart. Eddie became unstable, paranoid, and dominating. He rewrote band credits, taking over collaborative arrangements. Though astonished and hurt, Michael did not fight back. I wanted to avoid conflict, he said. It hurt enough. The announcement crushed everything. One day, Eddie called Michael and told him that Wolfgang, his adolescent son, would be Van Halen's new bassist. Michael remembered him saying everything was fine. Not knowing what to say. Devastated. Michael initially assumed it was a prank. After decades of dedication, friendship, and service, he couldn't contemplate being replaced. Reality hit hard when the reunion tour was announced without his name. I wasn't allowed to say goodbye, he said. Outraged fans flooded social media and fan forums to support Michael. He remained mute. I wouldn't speak in anger, he said. I was sad, not mad. He kept his anguish to himself for years. Even though the truth burdened him, reluctant to damage Eddie's legacy. Michael stated Eddie's 2020 death from cancer was one of his hardest days. He never found closure. Despite wanting to forgive him, Michael remarked, I never got the chance. That sorrow haunts him, he said. However, his decision to speak now is about honesty, not revenge. People should realize Eddie wasn't a villain, he said. He was human, smart, flawed, and shattered in ways fame can't fix. Michael said he plays Van Halen songs as an homage to his brother despite their breakup. I think of him every note I play, he remarked. Think of what we built and lost. And what we kept silent. As Michael said, excellence frequently comes with agonizing loneliness, and Eddie Van Halen's journey was no exception. Michael's next revelation revealed a deeper truth that impacted his vision of their friendship forever. Michael Anthony had a softer voice and spoke slowly when he shared deeper experiences only a band brother could. He seemed to be reliving every heartbeat of their shared past. He claimed that Eddie Van Halen's final years were marked by illness, meditation, guilt, and a late longing for reconciliation. Michael recalls a 2004 night there. Last actual talk before everything fell apart. After a lengthy, difficult tour, the band was fatigued. Backstage after the final show, they sat among empty beer bottles and the arena's muted hum. Eddie, fatigued and exhausted, leaned over to Michael and said something unforgettable. No one could do what we did. Mike. I lost sight of what was important. Michael didn't comprehend Eddie's meaning then. Years later, after losing him, the words haunt him. Michael believed he was already feeling the strain of all that had gone wrong. Fame, battles, lost friendships. All was catching up to him. Despite the anguish, Eddie continued making songs every day as his health declined. Michael said he had tried to contact Eddie many times but got no response. Left voicemails. I messaged common friends, he said. Like shouting into space. Before dying, he was gone. Michael was most hurt by the narrative's twist over time. He told supporters he hadn't left the band, contrary to popular belief. He insisted, I never quit. I was pushed. That was a truth I had to quietly accept for a long time. Michael's voice broke when he recounted Eddie's death. It hit me hard, he said. I believed there would be time to discuss and mend, no matter how awful things became. However, time ran out. Wolfgang Van Halen, Eddie's son and his longtime replacement, called him shortly after Eddie's death. What Wolfgang said shocked him. Michael, choking back tears, claimed Wolf informed him his dad talked about me in his dying months. He stated Eddie regretted the ending. His wish was to fix things if he could go back. These words broke Michael. Sadness, not rage. He identified Eddie. Despite his mistakes and hurts, he had a decent heart. Not knowing how to express it, Michael disclosed that Eddie recorded several unreleased guitar compositions in his final months. Wolfgang says some of them were influenced by childhood experiences. Small clubs, long band nights, and a desire to create. Wolf informed me his dad called one song for Mike, Michael whispered. Then I lost it. Sitting, I cried like a child. This modest, indirect gesture meant everything to Michael. The apology Eddie could never give in person. Michael reflected that music was his only means of saying it. Michael performs live today. He pays Eddie a quiet tribute in every show. It's not announced. He's not showy. He plays a short, haunting theme that he believes belongs to Eddie forever when the lights dim and the bass hums low. His tribute is typically called one of the night's most emotional moments by fans. One fan said each note conveys love and loss. While reflecting on his heartbreak, Michael claims he's at peace. Eddie and I had demons, he said. I recall the magic we made. Michael let up one last secret regarding Eddie's private life that he'd concealed for years before completing his interview. His next statement will forever impact fans' views of the late guitar star. When Michael Anthony finally spoke his long-buried story, the audience fell silent. This wasn't fame, band politics, or music anymore. It was about friendship, forgiveness, and a world-known man's frail heart. Michael said Eddie Van Halen regretted their broken connection and the individuals he wounded in his dying years. Michael whispered that Eddie wasn't proud of his behavior. He realized he'd alienated many. When you're dying, those ghosts come back. According to Michael, Eddie had confided in a mutual friend during his treatment. That friend told Michael something that shook him to his core. Eddie had spoken about wanting to reconcile with everyone he had wronged, especially Michael. He told our friend, "If I see Mike again, I'll tell him he was always the real brother," Michael recalled, his eyes misting. That was Eddie's truth. Underneath all that fire, he had a heart of gold. He just didn't know how to show it. Michael described Eddie as a man torn between genius and guilt. He was constantly chasing perfection, Michael said. He wanted to make everyone proud, his family, the band, the fans. But that pressure ate him alive. Even in his weakest days, Eddie still worked on music, writing melodies that no one has ever heard. Wolfgang told me there were whole albums worth of material, Michael said. Stuff so personal. He didn't even want anyone to hear it yet. One of those songs, Wolfgang later revealed to him, had been labeled simply, Brother. It was quiet, melancholic, and filled with emotion. He said it was the closest thing to a goodbye Eddie ever wrote, Michael explained. And that broke me. Because in a way, I think that song was meant for me. For Michael, that revelation brought both pain and peace. It was the closure he never got to have face to face. A musical confession left behind by a man who had said everything through his guitar. That's how Eddie spoke, he said. He didn't use words. He used sound. Michael admitted that when he first heard about Eddie's passing, he felt a rush of anger. I was angry at him for leaving things undone, he said. But then I realized, maybe that's just life. Maybe we all leave something unfinished. After Eddie's death, Michael reconnected with Wolfgang. And the two began to heal their shared wound. Wolf is a good kid, Michael said warmly. He's got his father's fire, but also his humility. Playing with him felt like reconnecting with a part of Eddie I thought I'd lost. When asked what he misses most about Eddie, Michael didn't hesitate. His laugh, he said. He had this loud, crazy laugh that could fill a whole room. Even when things were falling apart, that laugh made you believe everything would be okay. He then paused for a long moment before adding, I don't hate Eddie. I never did. He hurt me, but he also changed my life. Without him, there would be no Van Halen, no Michael Anthony anyone cared about. And for that, I'll always be grateful. Michael revealed that he now visits Eddie's old home studio every few years, quietly, privately, just to sit and reflect. I don't go there to mourn, he said. I go there to listen, because sometimes when it's quiet enough, I swear I can still hear him playing. As he finished his story, Michael looked into the camera and said words that fans will never forget. Eddie wasn't perfect. None of us are, but he was real, and that's what made him great. I hope people remember him not for the fights, not for the fame, but for the heart behind the music. And with that, Michael Anthony closed a chapter that had haunted him for decades. He didn't expose Eddie out of bitterness. He revealed the truth out of love. Because behind the legend of Van Halen, behind the riffs and records, was a friendship built on fire, broken by pride, and remembered with forgiveness. And in that truth, messy, human, and heartbreaking, lies the real story of Eddie Van Halen and Michael Anthony.